answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
It could be the greatest deal in history. They could wave the white flag of surrender. They could say, we surrender, we're finished, we've had it. The United States is the greatest power. Praise be to Allah. And they could do all of this. They could say it loud and clear, and the fake news would say it was a great victory for Iran. I mean, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. We're killing them. Just killing them. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no anti-aircraft. You know, we're flying planes over the middle of Tehran, and they have no idea what we're there. We've knocked out all of their radar, all of their anti-aircraft. Much of their missiles, they have probably less than 20%. We think about 20%. Most of their launchers, they have the missile launchers, which are quite important. Their drone capacity is way down. You see it. I mean, it's way down. Their attacks are very minor. They're finished.
They are finished. President Trump earlier today talking about he's warning Tehran as of this morning, the U.S. military is poised to attack Iran, quote, all caps, very hard tonight. Not exactly saying when nor where. But I'm sure the Iranians are aware of what they have in position because the oil infrastructure points are certainly in line. Targeted operation to assume total control of Iran's oil and gas markets. That would include Karg Island. Karg Island is their main terminal for exporting and importing oil. It's about 15 to 20 miles off the mainland coast of Iran in the northern Persian Gulf. It's 300 to 400 miles northwest of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, let me drill down on something here. When Iran is claiming the Strait of Hormuz belongs to them, it's their territory, it is international waters. Here's the way it is described for nations and their territorial waters. Territorial waters are those waters extending up to 12 nautical miles from the coastal nation's baseline. 12 miles. Karg Island, as we're pointing out here, is 300 to 400 miles northwest of the Strait of Hormuz and only 15 miles from Iran. So it is a hell of a long ways from the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran claims is our water, and we can control it. And we've continued to escort ships through there at risk, but we're doing it. And we're only firing on Iran up to this point in defensive measures. That is changing tonight based on what Trump is suggesting at this point. We'll have to see really what plays out. Thank you for joining us. Hour number one, Larry Connors USA, here on June 11, 2026. We are here every Monday through Friday for you from 6 to 8 p.m. And when we're on the air like we are right now, you can watch the program. Well, how do you do that? I'm glad you asked. You go to NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Facebook or Twitter. Larry Connors USA Rumble or Facebook. And everything we do later goes up as a podcast, video and audio, available at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, and again, Larry Connors USA Facebook. Oh, by the way, there's more indication that more folks are now using not just their Alexa speaker to listen to our program, nor their cell phone using our app, but they're doing it through their TV. You can have your TV, your smart TV, open up to NewsTalkSTL and hear everything we've got on at that moment. Keep that in mind. And again, reminding you that your phone is your radio. Wherever you are, wherever you are in the world, you open up that app for NewsTalkSTL, you'll hear the programming that's on the air right now, which would be Larry Connors USA or any other programs. And we have many great, solid programs for you. Outstanding hosts, and we book powerful guests on each and every program. Larry Connors USA offers you news, analysis, opinion, and education. You leave each hour with more information than you have right now when you begin the hour. I promise you that. In our next hour, Jasmine Crockett, Texas, of course, a MICDS grad. I'm sure they really like that idea. It's still on her resume. It's not going to go away. She's justifying the stabbing that took place at that track meet. Well, yesterday, the young man who carried out the stabbing was convicted, sentenced to 35 years. It is a tragedy. It's two kids at a track meet, but she wants to make it a racial issue. It's two teenagers kind of getting a little pushy with each other. No real threats made until suddenly a knife is pulled and another boy is dead. Two families wrecked by that. Two lives changed forever. One dead. The other 35 years in prison, might get out in half that amount of time. And also later in this hour, Marjorie Taylor Greene, former Georgia Congresswoman, claiming that Donald Trump is a traitor. Why? Why? You'll want to hear the reasoning. That'll be coming up later. And later in this hour, our story behind the story. It was on this date, 1963, that Governor George Wallace stood in the doorway at the University of Alabama, refusing to let two black students, a male and a female, enter to register. And the Deputy Attorney General was delivering an order direct from the President and the Attorney General. We will take you back to that date and our story behind the story. Now back to the issues we're facing with Iran. The latest from Trey Yanks.
Overnight, the United States unleashed powerful strikes against the Iranian regime. CENTCOM says that Iranian military surveillance systems, along with communication systems and air defense sites across Iran, were hit. Speaking from the Situation Room, President Trump told Fox News that 49 Tomahawk missiles hit locations as close to 40 miles from the capital of Tehran. Positions were also targeted along the southwestern part of Iran. The president described the strikes as violent and vicious. Also, President Trump says top Iranian officials called him directly, asking him to stop the bombing. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth spoke before the strikes began.
Instead, they're going to have tap, tap, tap bombs dropping on key facilities in Iran from the United States of America. And that's not because we want to restart anything we don't have to restart. It's because the War Department is prepared to set the terms to ensure that we get the kind of deal President Trump expects.
Yes, and we all expect. Bloomberg filed a news report earlier today on what Trump had stated on his social media and the issue about Karg Island.
This statement from the president just moments ago out on social media. I'll share the quote with you. The United States will be hitting Iran very hard tonight. At some point in the not too distant future, we will be taking Karg Island and other oil infrastructure points and assume total control of their oil and gas markets. Tyler Kendall tracking the story. Hey, Tyler.
Hey, John. Well, clearly a significant threat and escalation that's been put on the table from President Trump, but also one that we've heard from the White House before. We have to keep in mind that about 90% of Iranian crude exports flow through Karg Island. And while the country does have other export terminals, none are considered to match the sort of capacity that Karg Island filters through every day. This is raising questions, though, about what this actual operation would involve, including whether that would mean American boots on the ground. We've previously heard the administration float the idea that if they had total control over the air, that may make such an operation safer actually going into Karg Island. But we're going to have to see how this actually plays out, as we know that significant risks still remain when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, and as Iran threatens that it is only going to tighten its grip over the waterway. A statement from the IRGC overnight saying that they were going to stop all commercial shipping as they ramp up their own threats in response to the U.S.'s airstrikes overnight.
Now, I want to point something out to you. Louisiana Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, said, and I'm quoting, he would not put too much stock, end of quote, in President Trump's morning threat this morning to seize control of Karg Island, as in possible response to the downing of that Army helicopter this week, the Apache chopper. Johnson said, I think he's communicating directly with our adversaries over there and would not put too much stock in details of what he's telling the American people. Now, he was answering a question raised by CNN. Speaker Johnson, you should have just said, leave it to Trump and walk away. Don't basically undermine him by saying, don't put a lot of stock in what Trump has put out on social media. I do understand what he's trying to say, but I don't think he needed to move in that direction. I'll remind you again that Army Apache helicopter, 2 men on board, they both got out safely, and the drone had lodged in their craft sitting between the 2 of them. It just did not detonate. Talk about thank you, Lord. Louisiana Senator Kennedy on Iran.
I wouldn't wait around for a promise from the religious nuts who are running Iran, because they lie like fish swim. Any promise they make about negotiating in the future, they're not going to keep. Here's whatever I'd make 2 final points. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it. And number 2, the deal I would make with Iran is, look, you open up the Strait of Hormuz, and I'll remove the blockade so your people can eat and live indoors. And if Iran took that deal, I'd come home.
Well, that might happen. I don't see Iran doing it, but the Louisiana Senator Kennedy is exactly right. They lie just as fish swim. Can't trust them at their word. Victor Davis Hanson with the Hoover Institute and Daily Signal is very direct on what he thinks Trump should be doing. That'll be coming up in our next segment. But first, the congressional investigators focusing on Act Blue, a Democrat project collecting foreign dollars, illegally obviously, for U.S. elections.
Foreign funds have no place in American political campaigns. American elections are for American citizens only. Ms. Wallace-Jones, in 2023, I sent you this letter with 5 straightforward questions with a goal of confirming that foreign funds are not in our elections and that Act Blue had adequate fraud prevention measures in place. You replied a month later with a 4-page letter describing your fraud prevention policies and procedures that you had in place at Act Blue. But according to the New York Times, your response to this committee may have been false and misleading. Ms. Wallace-Jones, when you signed this letter to me, did you believe that this letter was false and misleading?
On the advice of my counsel, I respectfully decline to answer this question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Ms. Wallace-Jones, before you sent this letter, did you believe, was it brought to your attention that this letter that you sent me was false and misleading?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
All right. They're going to invoke the Fifth under the Constitution, and she's entitled to do that. But this is a game they play, and this is like mob bosses. But again, that is your right. You do not say anything to incriminate yourself. So I can defend her right to do it, but of course I still have a lot of questions about what Act Blue was doing. We do believe, according to investigators, they were taking money from foreign sources and influencing U.S. elections, which would be illegal. You were listening to Wisconsin Congressman Steele questioning Act Blue CEO Regina Wallace. We continue.
Ms. Wallace-Jones, before you sent this letter, did you believe, was it brought to your attention that this letter that you sent me was false and misleading?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Well, I think it's important for everybody here to know that according to the New York Times, you've been aware for quite a while that the response you made was likely false or misleading. Did you ever consider correcting the record for this committee when it was brought to your attention that your letter to me was false and misleading?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to the attorney-client privilege and my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
All right, we got it. We got it, and you're entitled to it. But it reaches a point of being ridiculous in using that response. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I have heard some say that if you answer one question, then that opens up the door for you have to answer the others. So you have to declare the Fifth Amendment every time. Again, I'm not an attorney. I haven't had a chance to re-verify it. I've heard from different attorneys that if that is true or if it's not. But this question from another member of the Congress, and it does get humorous.
I do have a series of questions for you, but I want to make sure I'm respectful. Is it Ms. Jones or Ms. Wallace-Jones?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Didn't expect that one.
None of us did. Would we? Can you just tell us if it's Ms. or Mrs.? What do you want? What do you want? I respectfully decline under the Fifth Amendment Constitution. Again, she has a right to do it. And I do not know for sure if she had answered even that question, if it would invalidate all the other times we were injected the Fifth Amendment. U.S., Mexico, and Canada hosting matches during a 5-week global competition. The U.S. hosting 78 matches across 11 cities, including the final match in New Jersey, July 19th. This is the World Cup. The U.S. team will compete in its first match on Friday, playing Paraguay in L.A. Stadium. FBI Director Patel said the Joint Terrorism Task Force, partnering with 200 agencies, fully engaged. It's a heavy lift, but we're going to do everything we can to protect everyone inside our borders. I'm not so sure what they're doing in Mexico nor Canada. But he points out extremists have used major global sporting events in the past to do harm and spread their twisted ideologies. The games begin today, and as I said, the U.S. begins its first game tomorrow. We'll have to keep a close watch on that. I'm sure many will, just for the engagement, but also for the threat level. Coming up, Victor Davis Hanson on dealing with Iran and a point he wants to make. I think it's very clear. And the story behind this story, this date, 1963. Governor Wallace standing in the doorway of the University of Alabama, not allowing 2 black students to enter. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Another day must be another roofer in town. And John Beal and I were talking. He said, every time you turn around, there's a new roofing company. Many of them have no idea what they're doing, and the statistics show that many will be out of business within 2 to 5 years. Who are you going to call to help you then? You need to remember only one name, John Beal. John Beal Roofing. You have a problem, he can take care of it. And we'll be here for you. John Beal Roofing. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Andersen, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as Support Dogs for Our Brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com.
This is NewsTalkSTL.
Oh, baby, when you talk like that, you make a woman go mad. So be wise and keep on reading the signs of my body. I'm on tonight, you know my hips don't lie, and I'm starting to feel you, boy. Come on, let's go real slow. Don't you see, baby, I see us perfect.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Why don't we give them a list of targets and say these are going to be hit? If you don't concede to surrender your uranium that is enriched, get out of the strait and let it be open, stop the subsidies to these terrorist appendages, and surrender your missile arsenal or what's left of it. Why doesn't he do that? I have a feeling he doesn't do that because he has intelligence that we don't have, because we don't have any boots on the ground or embedded reporting that Iran is in much worse shape than we think, we the public, and that there are civilians in the Iranian government, the president, some members of the parliament, that are sending signals that they're not part of the revolutionary guard, or they're not part of the theocracy, and they feel the people are getting more and more restive, and Trump is looking at them as a transitional government.
The very intelligent, scholarly Victor Davis Hanson, with the Hoover Institute, a think tank, and also with Daily Signal, which is a right-wing publication, but making it very clear in his mind that one thing we should do is just give them, here's a list of the targets. We're going to tell you this is what we're going to hit. And we probably have done that to some extent so you can get your civilian population out of the way if you've got them living in the midst of some of these military installations. We're not interested in killing Iranians. We're trying to destroy the regime that threatens not only the neighboring states, but the Jewish state of Israel and America, and Americans anywhere in the world. Keep that in mind. You could be somewhere in Europe for summer vacation. Someone realizes you're an American, you could become a target immediately. I'm not trying to frighten you. I'm just trying to make you aware of the reality of the situation. It is frightening, no doubt about it. Once again, Victor Davis Hanson.
So we had 38 days of bombing, and then we've had 60 days of negotiations. So there isn't really an Iran war right now. We have a War Powers Act. The left is all upset and trying to stop the, quote, war, but there is no war right now. It's a waiting game. And what is the waiting game? The waiting game is that Iran feels that by giving a concession on Monday and taking it back on Tuesday and letting Hezbollah attack Israel and then telling Israel not to reply and then sending a little boat out in the strait it can delay, advance, retreat, and Donald Trump will allow this because he is got a deadline too. Their deadline is they're losing $400 million a day in economic productivity and probably, I don't know, $2 or $3 billion in revenue.
And that's the key because that revenue was helping fund terrorists around the world. Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in the Gaza Strip, the Houthi rebels, and 6 or 7 other terrorist groups, each trying to climb over the top of the other to be the biggest, the baddest, the meanest. And, of course, you have Iran hitting some of its neighboring Muslim nations, partly a difference in the Muslim religion, but also partly because they figure that they are too close to the USA in policy, thoughts, and future.
What is Iran doing then? It's hitting Kuwait. Why does it hit Kuwait? I suppose it has the largest Shia population in the Gulf and it wants to stir up restive opposition to the royal family. It hits the UAE because it hates the UAE. It's the most liberal, progressive, and pro-Western and anti-Iranian of all of the Gulf nations. It wants to show the Arab world that if you, like the UAE, have a détente with Israel, you're going to suffer. It hit Israel. Why did it hit Israel? It hit Israel during this so-called peace because it wants to widen the reported gulf or anger between Netanyahu and Trump and turn public opinion toward Iran a little bit. So how does it all divide? Who gives in first? Donald Trump is kind of mystifying people because he's a Jacksonian. He believes in tough deterrence. So throughout this so-called peace of now 60 days, Iran has had a lot of provocations. They've broken the peace. They've, as I said, tried to mine the harbor. They've tried to attack U.S. ships. They've attacked our allies. And we have sometimes done a little bit of retaliation, but why don't we just unload on them?
Yeah. Why don't we just go ahead and do that? Well, again, Trump really does not want to destroy the country of Iran and its people. But we're reaching a point, and we will see what happens this night. By this time tomorrow, we'll have maybe a better picture. Or then again, it could be, all right, we're going to give you still another inch to try to correct things. I did like Victor Davis Hansen's remarks at the beginning. Just give them a target list, said, here's where you're coming. Get ready. Clear your people out or put them in. And they would put Iranian citizens in the crosshairs because they do not care about their people. The California governor's race, it is still amazing how the media covers up what all is going on. I'm looking at a piece from NBC's Kristen Walker. They were discussing the election and how they count the votes in California. And Breitbart editor-in-chief Alex Marlow was on there. Marlow. He is a conservative. And he said, look, we have a system that counts for 30 days, whereas in Florida and Texas, they can count all their votes in an hour. That's what we should be doing. But the leftists don't want to push that idea. They just want to do it. Marlow also pointed out that the Democrat that ends up getting the second place to run against Karen Bass and the Republican pushed aside because the votes suddenly started coming in, that night she was in tears. Neither Ryman, her tears were streaming everywhere because she thought she's going to lose out in the California mayor's race. She was tearful. And then more of the boxes came in, and suddenly, look at this. She's not as far behind. In fact, she's not as far behind. She's not far. She is ahead of the Republican candidate. If you make election fraud legal, is it still fraud? That's being asked by an author, investigative journalist, Peter Schweitzer. If you make election fraud legal, is it still fraud? The case I want to point to is what I would call mules for bass. Los Angeles Mayor Bass. Do you know what they were doing? Listen to how some of them homeless describe how the Bass political team was coming to the homeless camps.
They'd say, "Oh, do you want to vote for Karen or Nithya?" Or they just really just tell you to vote for Karen, huh?
But it was really voting her, man.
Did you vote?
Yeah.
Oh, you did for Karen Bass?
Yeah.
Down here trying to pay you to vote?
Yes. Karen Bassett. Right. That's her last name, Bassett?
Karen Bass, yeah. Or Nithya Raman?
Karen.
Karen? They told you to vote for Karen?
Yeah. They had to sign a little thing.
And how much they pay you?
It's like $2.
$2? Oh, to sign off on a thing to vote for her?
Yeah.
On a ballot?
Yes.
How much they pay you?
$5.
And they said, here, come and vote for these candidates?
Yes, sir.
And they told you who to vote for?
Yes.
So they told you to vote for Karen Bass or Nithya Raman?
Karen Bass.
They vote for Karen Bass?
Yeah.
For $5?
They gave you an optional choice, but they tell you who they want you to vote for.
So they tell you who you want to vote for. So like, yo, we'll give you $2, but you got to vote for one of these people.
Well, you know, I'm a barterer, man. So I got $4.
You got what?
$4.
$4?
$4.
$4? Oh.
Yeah, I don't. You know, since I'm voting your way, can I get a plate? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so $4, they're like, hey, you got to vote for one of these candidates, not Spencer. You do Karen or Nithya.
Yeah, it was that was the best one for me. I mean, that was the one I was suggested for. I don't give a fuck.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
And you're like, yo, give me $4 and I'll do it.
Yeah, why not? Sure.
And so they do this for everybody out here?
Yeah, they come out here all the time.
How often do they come down here?
Probably like 3 times a week.
3 times a week?
Oh,
to
yeah.
get the ballots?
Yep.
Wow. Damn, so you know other people too that voted too?
Actually, anybody that's registered,
yeah.
You know, half the motherfuckers down there on parole or probation, but you know how it is. You know.
Man, it's crazy. I see people
Life is today, man.
What happened?
It's the way it is down here now.
That's the way it is down here. They come down here and say, I'll give you $1, you vote for Karen Bass. This is a smart homeless man. He says, I got leverage. I don't have to take $1. They offered me $2. I said, no, I want $4. You want me to vote for her? I want $4. And he gets it. Free enterprise at work. Bribery at work. Fraud at work. As Peter Schweitzer asked, if fraud is declared legal, then can you call it illegal? All right, coming up, our story behind the story. It was this date, June 11, 1963. An infamous video of Governor Wallace standing in the doorway of the University of Alabama.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I want to share something with you. Cooking a pizza using coal creates an amazing pizza. Only one place to get it, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. Of course, they offer a wide variety of pasta, but you just visit the website NapoliSTL.com, dine in or take out, and get ready for patio season. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Try it. You can thank me later. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Andersen, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAnderson.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAnderson.com. When insurance companies know you're represented by Onder Law, they know Onder is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Onder Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Onder wins. Onder, O-N-D-E-R, underlaw.com.
This is News Talk STL.
People keep on learning. Soldiers keep on warring.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
It was hot in Tuscaloosa this morning, very hot, nearly 100 degrees, and it was humid. And weather merely to serve to add to the tense atmosphere on the campus of the University of Alabama. This is what happened as Nicholas Katzenbach, accompanied by two federal marshals, left their car and approached Governor Wallace standing in the schoolhouse door. The two Negro students, Vivian Malone and Jimmy A. Hood, stayed in the car. The time was about 12:47 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time.
Come right down.
Just a minute. Just a minute.
I am the Deputy Attorney General of the United States. I am here accompanied by the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama and by the Marshal for the Northern District of Alabama. And I have with me here proclamation signed by the President of the United States, which calls upon you to cease obstruction to justice in this state. Proclamation, Governor, was signed by the President within the last hour.
So there you have the Deputy Attorney General operating under Robert Kennedy, who was the Attorney General at the time, under President John F. Kennedy, the President at the time, sending word down to Alabama Governor Wallace, you have to let these black students enter. And the National Guard had been authorized and called up in case they were going to be needed. Governor Wallace was blocking the students. It was his policy known as, sometimes now called, the stand in the schoolhouse door. Symbolic, blocking the doorway to Foster Auditorium to prevent the two students, Vivian Malone and James Hood, from enrolling. And he was not going to yield. He was still standing by his attitude. Segregation now, segregation forever. Governor Wallace responding to the Deputy Attorney General's order direct from the President.
As Governor and Chief Magistrate of the state of Alabama, I deem it to be my solemn obligation and duty to stand before you, representing the rights and sovereignty of this state and its peoples. The unwelcomed, unwanted, unwarranted, and force-induced intrusion upon the campus of the University of Alabama, today of the might of the central government, offers frightful example of the oppression of the rights, privileges, and sovereignty of this state by officers of the federal government. Now, therefore, I, George C. Wallace, as governor of the state of Alabama, have by my action raised issues between the central government and the sovereign state of Alabama, which said issues should be adjudicated in the manner prescribed by the Constitution of the United States, and now being mindful of my duties and responsibilities under the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the state of Alabama, and seeking to preserve and maintain the peace and dignity of this state and the individual freedoms of the citizens thereof, do hereby denounce and forbid this illegal and unwarranted action by the central government.
George Wallace was not stepping down. It was a show, obviously, but he was baking it in the state of Alabama, where it was widely accepted and applauded. The attitude then was segregation now, segregation forever. And the fact that they're happy in their place. They have their place, we have our place. That was the prevailing attitude throughout much of the South, not just Alabama. But this was a flashpoint. You heard Governor Wallace's response. Deputy Attorney General Katzenbach, made this response.
I take it from that statement that you are going to stand in that door and that you are not going to carry out the orders of this court, and that you are going to resist us from doing so. Is that correct?
I stand upon the statement.
Stand upon that statement. Governor, I'm not interested in a show. I don't know what the purpose of the show is. I am interested in the orders of these courts being enforced. That is my only responsibility here. I ask you once more, the choice is yours. There is no choice that the United States government has in this but to see that the lawful orders of its court are enforced. The consequences of your stand must rest with you. The choice is yours. I would ask you once again to responsibly step aside, and if you do not, I'm going to assure you that the orders of those courts will be enforced. Two students who simply seek an education on this campus are presently on the campus. They have a right to be here, protected by that court order. They have a right to register here. It is a simple problem, scarcely worth this kind of attention in my judgment. And those students who remain on this campus, they will register today. They will go to school tomorrow, and they will go to school at this university at this summer session. The university has indicated its willingness to accept them. From the outset, Governor, all of us have known that the final chapter of this would be the admission of these students. I ask you once again to reconsider the consequences of your statement, and I'll ask you once again, will you give me the assurance that you will step aside and peacefully do your duty? Very well. Students will remain on the campus.
And at that point, Deputy Attorney General Nicholas Katzenbach walked away, leaving George Wallace still standing in front of a podium he had erected, surrounded by Alabama State Police and police officers in Tuscaloosa, as well as University Police, National Guard troops standing nearby waiting to enforce the act if needed. Wallace was not done competing with words.
We are winning in this fight because we are awakening the American people to the dangers that we have spoken about so many times, which is so evident today, the trend toward military dictatorship in this country. We shall now return to Montgomery for the purpose of continuing this fight, this constitutional fight, because we are winning. We shall continue to work for a better Alabama for all the people of this state, both white and Negro. And it is my prayer that God above shall bless all the people of this state, both white and black.
So he was still refusing to move, but at that point, the Alabama National Guard, which had been federalized, and General Henry V. Graham of the Alabama National Guard commanded Wallace to step aside, which he did. Now, even before these students showed up on campus in 1963, a black student, female, had been enrolled at the university back in the late 50s. So, yes, there is more to the story behind the story.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
This, then, is the moment when Governor George Wallace of Alabama walked away from the schoolhouse door.
Well, I would just like to say that I'm glad that the registration is over and everything is over now. I think we can get down to studying. This is our main purpose here, and I'm glad that it has all been over now, and all we have to do now is get down, go get our books and start studying. That's all.
Well, I'd like to say that at this time, this is our first and final press conference, and we'd like to say that we are very happy to note that our registration has taken place without incident, and we hope that we will be able to get on to our main purpose for being here, and that is to get an education. And this is our final statement.
You were listening then to Vivian Malone and James Hood, the two students on this date, 1963, that did successfully register for classes after the stand in the schoolhouse door presentation by Governor George Wallace. Federalized national troops have been intervening and eventually got them to enter, and they enrolled. And make note of this. In 1965, Vivian Malone became the first black student to graduate from the University of Alabama. James Hood did transfer to another university shortly after initially enrolling in the University of Alabama, but returned decades later, ultimately earning a doctorate from the University of Alabama in 1997. But as I said earlier, these were not the first two black students on the campus of the University of Alabama. In 1956, Autherine Lucy was the first African-American to enroll at the university. And there was not a big thing made as far as the registrar was considered, but there were a lot of threats against her, her life, her family. Some rioting had broken out. She attended classes for only 3 days. She was suspended and eventually expelled. Decades later, in 1988, the university overturned her expulsion, and she returned to earn a master's degree in education in 1991. But she was had enrolled in the university in 1956, years before this date of 1963 we've been talking about. You could tell how the events were unfolding and changing in the South when you started seeing universities in the South accept and actively work to recruit and draft black athletes, particularly for football. John Mitchell transferred from Eastern Arizona Junior College, started all 24 games as a defensive end. He played for the Alabama Crimson Tide from 1970 to 1971. So in 1971, years after the standoff in the doorway with George Wallace in 1963, in 1971, John Mitchell took the field as the program's first African-American varsity football player. He also became Alabama's first black team captain, first black assistant coach. Wilbur Jackson, a running back from Ozark, Alabama, played his varsity years from 71 to 73, and in fact, he's credited with helping Alabama win back-to-back SEC titles, went on to be drafted in the first round of the 1974 NFL draft. And when you saw football colleges recognizing just because of their color doesn't mean they can't play, and We want them if they're that qualified. This was not a DEI program at that point. This was, can they excel what we want them to excel on the field and in academics, but particularly for sports because it brought in so much money. There were whites that stayed away from the game, said they would never go to another Alabama game because a black player was on the field. But soon there were more than one or two. And a lot of that happened under Coach Bear Bryant, considered to be one of the greatest football coaches of all time. Obviously best known as the head coach of the University of Alabama, the Alabama Crimson Tide. He was there from 58, before blacks were playing, and through 82, when they were playing, 25 years. 6 national championships, 13 conference championships, and he loved all of his players. He made no distinction on their color nor race. He played them to win the game. If they could provide what he needed on the field, they were in play. And that was probably the real straw breaking segregation in Southern university schools. Regardless of what the person's color was, if they could play on the field and deliver, they wanted them for their team to win the titles I just listed for you by Bear Bryant. It was obviously, yes, times were a-changin'. Fascinating story, right? Every 6 o'clock hour, we close out with a story behind the story. Been doing it since before the first of the year, and I know many of you like them because I hear from you. And I always try to come up with some solid ones. Sometimes we have a little more personal, sometimes stories I've been involved in directly. But even historically, the story behind the story, we keep you fascinated with it. So the story behind the story tomorrow, June 12th. It was 1966, June 12th, the Miranda versus Arizona Supreme Court decision. This is where the Miranda ruling first surfaced, that you must be advised of your rights. That's tomorrow's story behind the story. Our second hour is yet to come. And remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. There's only one place you can get pizza cooked over coals, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Of course, Napoli Brothers has a great selection of pasta dishes. Between the pizza and pasta, trust me, you will not leave hungry. Then, a few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, a wide variety of quality cigars, each offering a unique smoke. That cigar, some premium whiskey, all you need to do is enjoy. Lit Cigar Lounge and Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, Chesterfield Valley. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. Let's be candid, honest. No out-of-state law firm can represent you better than Onder Law. O-N-D-E-R. Hometown roots, attorneys living right here with you and your family. When you suffer an injury because someone else was negligent, Onder Law will make sure the other party takes full responsibility. You'll get full compensation, not a backroom deal worked out with some insurance companies. And, of course, we're moving into the stormy season. And, again, when you have a legitimate claim, you should be properly compensated. Onder Law does not toy around with adjusters, investigators, lawyers trained to cheat you of what is rightfully yours. Onder Law has already recovered millions for families across Missouri and Illinois. Onder wins. Not just a catchy phrase, it's a fact. So I'll repeat it. Onder wins. OnderLaw.com. O-N-D-E-R. OnderLaw.com. Wins.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Can y'all hear me all right? Y'all hear me all right? Y'all hear me all right? I'm Peppermint, and I am so excited to be here for Mayor Mamdani's very first ever New York City Pride celebration as mayor.
Happy Pride, everyone! As a first step, my administration has made a $15 million investment in gender-affirming care over the next 2 years. And we will continue to use every tool at our disposal to ensure that trans and gender non-conforming New Yorkers can live with dignity, safety, and freedom they deserve.
So there you have Mamdani being praised for his LGBTQ pride party in New York City and saying we're going to support them with $15 million for those who want to change their sex and want to be transgender. What about helping your homeless and the people that really need food and things of that nature? Oh, that's all part of what we'll do, too. Remember, we're going to have free grocery stores. They don't have one yet. They probably will not have one by 2026, and it will fail. That's the way communism, Marxism works. Oh, but we're going to tax the billionaires. Well, they're leaving town and the state. You're not going to have them to tax anymore. That means people on the lower rungs will be the next ones attacked. But they want to praise and shout from the rooftop, we're spending $15 million when the New York City budget is way over. They cannot come up with enough money to do the basic essentials, but they're going to carve out $15 million to support LGBTQ, those who want to be transgendered. I know not every New Yorker voted for Mamdani. And maybe many who sat home and thought, he's not going to win. Now you think, oh, damn, maybe I should have. Maybe my vote would have made a difference. But there were many who did want, they want exactly this. And they hate America. And they hate Trump. And anything they can do to undo America and Donald Trump, they're proud of. Shameful. Absolutely shameful. Welcome to hour number 2, Larry Connors USA. Reminding you with Larry Connors USA, we're here every Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. And with Larry Connors USA, you are going to get news, analysis, commentary, and education. In fact, later in this hour, Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who lost her election, will not be returning to Congress in January, but still is there, took to the floor of the House to mock Dr. Elvita King, who is the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King. Why did she do that? What's behind the scenes? We'll lay it out for you. In the meantime, as we have seen across Europe, they have now acknowledged mass migration, open migration, is destroying our nations, our culture, our identity. We were telling you that. And we were saying the same thing would happen to the USA with the Joe Biden open border policy. And we have a push by radical Muslims. They want to be elected to office not to truly serve their community and all people of all faith, but to push propaganda and to wipe out the others. Listen to some of the CRAP they're pushing around.
Now it's getting through Congress. So before it was by the sword, now it's getting themselves into Parliament and then making laws that act as the sword, the Islamophobia law in Canada, M103.
Yeah.
Muslim Brotherhood. I find that there are only two things which are open to our movements. Ballot or bullet, nothing in between.
I used to say that democracy is haram. Now I say participation in democracy is our jihad. That's our jihad. We're going to fight not through the bullets, but the ballot.
Going to the ballot and voting is now an obligatory action, fard ayn. And it is a jihad that is now needs to be done because this is our modern jihad. You can elect a person who wants the Sharia.
Because in the United States, what we do know is that in the past election, just this last election, there have been over 800 Muslim candidates running for office.
We may end up with about 50 members of Congress in the next 6 years. That's really the essence of dismantling the system of injustice, is to replace it with the people who represent the Prophet ﷺ.
They are all about, we can use bombs, we can use bullets, we can use knives, or we can use the ballot box. And if we get in control and how many seats and places we hold across the nation in local governments and now in Congress, what they're pushing for, think of how that could add up to disaster for our nation. And in fact, Britain's government top terrorism expert belatedly admitting, in the wake of another gruesome migrant versus native outrage that triggered riots, he's admitting, senior lawyer Jonathan Hall, noting that the mass migration carries a security risk and a potential threat to the health of our nation. Monday night, there was an attempted beheading of a man in Belfast. The man arrested a Sudanese asylum seeker, a jihadist. Supposedly, the riots that followed were all because there were those that were thinking he should not have been arrested, and others upset that we've got jihadists in our midst that believe they can carry out beheadings and it's all natural. But the top terrorism expert now in Britain acknowledging, it makes me think of something I really haven't heard, which had been stated previously in Trump's national security strategy, quite striking at the time, and that is destabilization of Europe. They will lose their borders, they will lose their nation, they will lose their culture. The face and the image of Germany, England, France, and others will change if this continues. They're not against migrants coming in legally or illegally in their case. In some cases, they don't mind. But if they're coming in not to assimilate, but to radically change and overthrow. We've got our own problems in this nation. And one of them right direct from St. Louis, who graduated from MICDS. My oldest grandson did as well. And I'll bet MICDS hates this every time I bring it up. Well, that's just tough. Jasmine Crockett goes down to Texas and walks into a seat so she can be elected to Congress. And she had to point out that she thinks Carmelo Anthony, the teenager charged, justified, I should say convicted, in stabbing another young teen, Austin Metcalf, to death at a track meet. She's basically saying she backs what Carmelo Anthony did.
If a 300-pound man is beating me, like on top of me and beating me down, I'm not limited to fist. You know, I would argue that even the only time we go into things like people's hands being considered deadly weapons is typically like if they're a professional boxer or that kind of stuff. But I think by the time you start getting to like football player, good argument. Good freaking argument. We're not talking about like the golfers. We're talking about football players, right? Like this is what they are trained to do, is to inflict like serious physical contact. And it's my understanding that the decedent was that.
Now, Carmelo Anthony, this was at a track meet. The guy that he ended up stabbing did outweigh him by about 40-plus pounds. And he was trying to get him to leave their tent. He said, you can't be in our tent. This is for our team tent. And it was raining outside. And he didn't want to go into the rain. Well, now, it's not like it's hailing. It's not that he's going to be run over by a railroad train. They're just saying, get out of our tent, go to another tent. This is our team tent. But he's trying to do it in such a way, and it was basically, for a period of time, nothing more than a couple of teenage boys shoving and pushing each other. Until Carmelo Anthony pulled out a knife, stabbing Austin Metcalf directly in the chest. And again, Jasmine Crockett finds reason to justify it.
35 years for a kid who had decided to go under a tent that was not his team's tent as it was raining, and simply didn't want to be put out in the rain by some random kid that he didn't know who was larger than him. Listen, a lot of people don't know what it is to live as a Black person in this country, but just like you can give the benefit of the doubt to so many police officers when they go out and they shoot some Black unarmed person, even though they are trained, the fact that there was little to no mercy seen or humanity seen when this Black boy said that I was scared.
But again, they're not shoving him into the path of a train. It was raining. But he was bound, determined to do what he wanted. I'm telling you, basically, just look at his two high school kids, pushing up against each other. And the stabber wanted to claim it was self-defense. And that's what Jasmine's trying to focus everything on. So Carmelo Anthony, convicted of murder, sentenced to 35 years behind bars. There'd been a fundraiser his mother put in place to raise money for his defense, supposedly. They've taken it down, and you know why? It's not because the defense is over. They're still trying to appeal. They originally wanted to help Carmelo official fund to raise nearly $1.4 million. That was their goal. They shut it down around $600,000. And why? Because it was not all going for legal defense. They were using it for basic living costs, transportation, counseling, other security measures. Again, they could justify that. The father, who identifies as Carmelo Anthony's father, is now living in Louisiana. So they have scrubbed the fundraiser, and in part that is because there have been reports the money has been spent on luxury items. Your son is on trial for his life for murder, and you're raising money, and you're making sure you get out and buy things in a luxurious fashion? The sad thing is, the lives of two boys changed forever. One dead, one sentenced to 35 years in prison. And the families are changed forever. One who has a son that will never come back, and one who might have been a bright track star and a great future ahead, but got hot-headed and his family now is watching him go behind bars. It's a tragedy all the way around. Former California Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is calling Trump a traitor. Now, on what basis?
I also had a very uncomfortable phone call with the president before the release of the Epstein files, where he told me that his friends would get hurt if the files were released, and I'll never forget that. I'll also never forget the text message he sent me when I told him that my son's life was being threatened because he was calling me a traitor because I fought to release the Epstein files, where he told me that I deserved it. And so this doesn't shock me that his team was paralyzed. But I tell you what it is. It's absolutely ridiculous and unforgivable. We're talking about pedophiles and rapists of the elite class of people that never get held accountable for anything. So if they were paralyzed and scared and didn't know what to do about releasing the Epstein files, these people are absolutely absurd. They don't deserve the American people's trust. As a matter of fact, we should consider them as, they should be considered traitors. They're traitors, the ones that refuse to release the Epstein files.
Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene had Trump's support at one time, as she was Georgia Congresswoman, but she was a hothead. We all saw that. Let her go, but then suddenly she goes too far, and he moves away from her. Now, what she said that Trump told her in that phone call, she can't document. It's her word against whatever he might say in response. Did it happen that way? I don't know. But let's be clear here. While I want the Epstein files fully open, fully transparent, not doing that is not being a traitor to the nation. It's if Trump has anything to do with concealing more evidence in them because of his friends, according to Marjorie Taylor Greene, he's a traitor to his supporters, not the country. There's a big, big difference. Politics versus country. Marjorie Taylor Greene continues.
What is remarkable to me is that this administration, people that we voted for, demanding transparency, the man that campaigned all over the country claiming that he would be the one to drain the swamp, is the very man that fought to keep the Epstein files from being released. And then he in turn called me the traitor because I fought to release the Epstein files. You know, many people have turned and said, oh, she's a Democrat now. I'm not a Democrat. Nothing changed about my views. I'm unapologetically America first. As a matter of fact, I've taken off the Tea Party jerseys. I don't want anything to do with any of them. I'm straight down the line, strictly for the American people. But it's been shocking to people, many people that voted for Donald Trump, many people that voted Republican, that they would actually follow through to try to cover up the Epstein files. And that's the part that everyone just can't even understand.
I agree. I will agree with that part. Why there's not more coming out if it's available. It was the Epstein file. I saw one piece earlier that someone's come forward and said they were basically sending young girls to Epstein as kind of a modeling career for them, knowing they were going into a pedophile pipeline. I want that public, and I want those involved in it incarcerated. Coming up, why Trump is now endorsing Susan Collins in her race to stay in the Senate. Is she GOP? Not really. It's the Plattner issue. And also up next, Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett again, angry over Congress investigating fraud in the Southern Poverty Law Center and mocking Dr. Alveda King. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gazoon's height, call Wellington Environmental. to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com.
This is News Talk STL.
She wants to dance like Uma Thurman, bury me till I confess. She wants to dance like Uma Thurman, and I can't get you out of my head.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
You know what? I hate that we have spent this much time, on SPLC and we've not addressed the elephant in the room, the literal elephant in the room. The vast majority of the people on that side of the aisle, and for those of you that are at home, let me tell you, when I say that side of the aisle, I'm talking about the Republicans, the ones that brought this hearing. And again, you've heard that this is not the first hearing, but the vast majority of them are white men. White men.
There we go again.
Are lecturing people of color because the vast majority, actually, any semblance of diversity comes from this side of the aisle. You want to tell people of color who is fighting for who? People of color do not feel comfortable or welcomed within your party. That's why you have to parade someone who has the name Dr. King attached to them so that people can be confused.
That is Jasmine Crockett again, currently a Texas congresswoman, claiming that Dr. Alveda King, who is Martin Luther King Jr.'s niece, was paraded out by the Republicans as we were going through the investigation of the Southern Poverty Law Center as an example of someone who says they should be investigated because of what the Department of Justice claims they did. The allegations are, for years, the Southern Poverty Law Center, which supposedly stood for equality, especially for races, was taking donor money and funneling it, $4 million plus, to the KKK and other hate groups, Aryan Nation, giving them money to cause chaos, spread fear. And therefore, every time that would happen, they could get more donations. They brought more money in. But the race card has to be played. And Jasmine Crockett has a deck of race cards. You heard her earlier in her remarks about the decision in the Carmelo Anthony case. When the case was decided and Carmelo Anthony failed at his self-defense claim and he was convicted, his grandmother was shouting out racist as they were leaving the court. Well, of course, she knew that was going to set more protesters off. She wanted to make sure they were aware of it. Cardi B, as if you care, an entertainer, raging, as she said, at the disgusting Carmelo Anthony guilty verdict, shouting, not justice, trying to make an example. An example of what? You cannot take a knife and kill someone just because you have a disagreement with them? Oh, no, I missed the point. Did I miss the point? No. A black man that can commit that crime should be going free. No one should be going free. I don't give a damn about your color. Are you hearing? Are you listening? Are you listening? Your color has nothing to do with your acts. And I don't take the particular act you carried out and spreaded the blame across everyone else of similar color. Unless you like to play the race card, which the left is very adept at doing and does it often. And so then when Dr. Alveda King, Martin Luther King Jr.'s niece, stood up in the hearings she was part of those being questioned for the use of money misused, according to the DOJ, by the Southern Poverty Law Center. She was proclaiming Christ and love for each other. But she was not going to sit idly by and have Jasmine Crockett claim she was paraded out as a black woman to show that we have blacks that believe that we know what we're doing, even though we're all, quote, white men. Dr. King.
Hello. Dr. King, thank you for being here. I know that there was a monologue earlier in which you wanted to respond. I think you were kind of ready to do that, but we're not given that opportunity. Would you like to briefly respond to that?
Very briefly, Congresswoman, I am a bit emotional. I'm going to watch what I say. But it seems as though you have suggested that I am a bastard to the King family legacy. I am legitimately the daughter of Reverend Alfred Daniel Williams King and Dr. Naomi Ruth Barber King. We are a family who loves God, and I love you. God bless you.
Ms. King, let the record reflect that the gentlelady from Texas left the room. Thank you for responding to that.
Yep. Jasmine Crockett did not want to hear a response to her charges. I do want to clarify a couple things. Dr. Alveda King holds a Doctor of Philosophy in Applied Theology from Adian University. She holds an honorary Doctorate of Laws from St. Anselm College. I don't know much about that. But Adian University is a private, unaccredited distance learning institution. And her honorary degree was awarded in recognition of her civil rights advocacy and public service. I just want you to have the facts. That doesn't dismiss how she was responding and saying that Jasmine Crockett was basically calling me a bastard child, standing up in defense of the investigation into the Southern Poverty Law Center, taking donor money from poor people, often black, to fight supposedly against racism, and at the same time spending up to $4 million to keep the fight going on, keep the KKK active, and cross burning, paying funds to buy the lumber for the cross and fuel to set it on fire. Well, today the House of Representatives rejected a short-term extension of FISA Section 702. That's our critical foreign surveillance program. The standoff is primarily because Trump's recess appointment of Bill Pulte as acting director of national intel. I don't think Pulte is a good choice. There got to be better people out there. Pulte doesn't have any kind of background that suggests he knows what he would be doing in there. But the bottom line, the program was to extend through July 2nd, failed by a vote in the House of 198 to 218. Democrat lawmakers, some Republicans demanding more intelligence reforms, and they did not like the Pulte nomination. And they cited his lack of national security experience. And they were also then, at the same time, saying Trump is trying to weaponize the government against the people. That's clearly what Joe Biden did. They've had previous extension. There was a short-term patch. Got signed into law in April. But right now, Republicans are leaving for their break, a week-long recess with a partisan gridlock. Section 702 will expire, putting the country in a legal gray area as to whether it can continue to watch over and surveil foreign targets. Now, asked after the vote if Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican, will you bring the House back from recess to vote on FISA again? His answer, what would be the point? I'm not going to blanketly endorse anything the government does at whatever agency. I'm not going to blanketly endorse FISA. It has its values. It has its flaws. And often the values of the flaws are just parallel to the men and women inside those agencies and direction from on high. We saw how Brennan and Clapper handled CIA and DNI and things of that nature, and they were weaponizing them against Trump and the American people. I want Americans protected. I don't want another 9/11. This could open up, something we don't see at this point. If FISA is basically in a gray area, not sure what the authorities can use and do under that, are they opening us up for another attack? We have the World Cup games underway in our nation as of today. Another one playing tonight. USA plays tomorrow. We have numerous in our country invited in for those games. We have sent some back, including a referee from Somalia, because he had ties to terrorist actors. But we don't know some of the others that are in, that are coming in probably as true participants to play. But we also, no doubt, would have some coming in that are here to cause chaos, havoc, and terrorism. Think it's going to end overnight? Of course it's not. So coming up, why is Trump suddenly supporting Susan Collins for Senate?
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
When insurance companies know you're represented by Under Law, they know Under is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Under Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Under wins. Under, O-N-D-R, underlaw.com. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. When I have business clients or guests from out of town, I often take them to Cafe Napoli. I know they're going to enjoy any of the Napoli locations. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, next to Napoli C, Napoli Kirkwood, or Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Excellent food and intellectual conversation, if they bring the intellectual conversation. And NapoliSTL.com. NapoliSTL.com. You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting, they will take care of that. You need some mold remediation, they can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington.
This is News Talk STL.
I'm gonna run away to duck gun carry, make camp where the land is bare. I'm gonna run away to duck gun carry, ain't no one gonna find me there. Ain't no one gonna find me there. Found trouble in the town I come from, left 6 months ago or so. I had to run from the man I wronged there.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Are you all in supporting Susan Collins? Does she have your full support and endorsement in her
She does
re-election?
because she's a sane woman. She's not my best friend at all. These guys are. I get along well, but I have some. But she's a sane person. And she's a person that never missed a vote in many years. I mean, she's like had 10,000 votes. She had 10,000 votes. She never missed a vote. Unfortunately, because sometimes she voted against me. You know, look, she's a sane woman, and she's a respected person. Maybe a little different ideology than me, but this guy is a thug. He's a fake. He's a fake thug. He's a phony. I made a lot of money picking out phonies. He's a real phony. He's bad. He's a bad person.
The bad person is Graham Plattner, the one the Democrats have put up to run against Susan Collins in Maine, as they desperately try to grab another seat in the U.S. Senate. And it is to the point that Trump can't have a seat lost, and the nation cannot afford to have a seat lost to a radical Nazi like Graham Plattner. Oh, I didn't know when I got that tattoo it was Nazi related. Well, then you're an idiot, so you had no reason to be in the U.S. Senate. Now, Graham Plattner has served our nation in military action. For that, I credit and praise him. But I don't care what you've done for our country in the past. What are you going to do for us going forward? And his position is, I'm going to get rid of everything Trump's doing. And he's running basically on an anti-hate Trump campaign, which gets a lot of the left, even the progressives, and even they have an issue with him. As I quoted AOC yesterday, one of the squad members, a true progressive, saying that it's hard to stomach. And then you have one of those on The View, Sonny Holston, saying, if I were a Maine voter, I'd hold my nose and go vote for him. That's how they find him so disgusting, and yet they're willing to accept him. As I said yesterday, I don't want them, the left, ever again. I don't need them to lecture me on morality and what's good. I'm looking at a piece written by Christopher Jacobs in The Federalist. Here's the headline. With Graham Plattner, Democrats discover their new political motto. Their new political motto. Vote for the Nazi. Yeah, the guy is a Nazi by everything around him. And there's a few sexual escapades and parading around and making remarks on various social platforms that are way out of line. And I know, I hear some of you saying, well, what did Trump do? What about Trump? What about Trump? Can you just stick to this issue for right now? As Christopher Jacobs points out, Democrats will support someone, anyone, who will help them defeat Republicans. More specifically, Donald Trump, even though Trump, well, we'll see if he gets his third term. I did it. I did it. I know I pushed the go button for some of you. Third term? Trump's got a third term? No, he cannot. He will not. And there's a question who will follow him. Trump had said the other day specifically that he thought a ticket of Vance and Rubio would be hard to beat. Now, listing Vance first suggests he thinks Vance should be president, Rubio vice president. A lot of folks think Vance is not up to being president, but Rubio is. I'm one of those right now that I'm leaning more toward Rubio. He's done an excellent job in the Secretary of State position. But back to this article about why the Democrats who cry out that Trump is a Nazi and a fascist, and now suddenly they don't seem to care. They have one in their own midst. Chuck Schumer endorses him. Bernie Sanders, for what that's worth, he endorses him. Democrats will not condemn him, even if they have to, quote, hold their nose and go in there and vote. Or as AOC said, it makes me sick to my stomach, but it's got to be done. Vote for the Nazi. It's important. That's the mantra of Graham Plattner. Now, again, the writer for The Federalist says the saying echoes a slogan from campaigns past. One of supporters of Republican Susan Collins, Plattner's opponent in the general election, would do well to employ against Plattner. The slogan demonstrates how Democrats will embrace a candidate, any candidate, so long as they oppose President Trump. And Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy had said, I'll take anyone who will stand against Trump. Anyone? That would mean maybe members of the Iranian regime when you say anyone? There's a piece inside this article for The Federalist. Now, The Federalist is a right publication. I want to make sure you understand that. I don't try to hide the information like that. I want you to know where they're coming from. But the author says nearly 200 years ago, a peculiar campaign in the most peculiar of political states, Louisiana, produced a slogan for the ages. In 1991, incumbent Governor Buddy Roemer ran for re-election, months after switching his party registration from Democrat to Republican. Now, the party switch, coupled with actions Roemer took in office, angered constituents so much he finished third in the Louisiana all-party primary. Instead, the top two vote-getters in the primary advancing to the general election runoff, former Democrat Governor Edwin Edwards, often viewed as corrupt, and David Duke, the founder of the Knights of the KKK, running as a Republican. Do you remember that? The article continues, says, faced with a choice between a corrupt politician who was eventually convicted on corruption charges in 2000, a choice between him and a Klansman associated with neo-Nazis. Romer, the former governor, came up with a catchy bumper sticker that signified Edwards as the proverbial lesser of two evils. Vote for the crook. It's important. That's how wacko we have become. I have several good friends who are Democrats. Some of them I can have a discussion with. Some, it's just off limits. They cannot have a rational discussion and discuss details as opposed to emotions and anger. And I'm looking at some of the quotes that appear in this article in the Federalist saying, in one source, several donors I know are still all in for Plattner because he's not Susan Collins and he's a Democrat. Another one say, we don't care. I think it's a case for many donors. Anybody who beats Susan Collins will do. Still another one stating he was a mean boyfriend when he got out of the military and was drinking. Susan Collins was defining the vote for the big, beautiful bill. They just want to defeat him, Trump. They just want to make sure that the status quo remains in place. I think the fight's worth having. And then you got Bernie Sanders, and I'm quoting Bernie Sanders directly. We cannot continue to allow the Republican Party to control the Senate and push toward, and here's where he goes off rails, Trump's oligarchic and authoritarian agenda. That's what we had under Biden. Hunter Biden made all kinds of deals with oligarchs. Remember that? And all kinds of family financial deals for the crime family, the Biden crime family. And being authoritarian, how many times did the Department of Justice become weaponized under Biden to go after anybody that they didn't like? And Bernie Sanders insists there's only one candidate who will do something about Trump, Graham Plattner. So they're going to vote for the lesser of the two evils in their view. Chris Jacobs, a writer of that, is the CEO of Juniper Research Group, author of the book, The Case Against the Single Payer, the case of the single payer. But he raises some very strong points there. Trump, of course, has been suggesting that tonight could leave Iran's main oil structures in flames. There's been some wavering on that throughout the day, but this report earlier in the day from Bloomberg News.
This statement from the president just moments ago out on social media. I'll share the quote with you. The United States will be hitting Iran very hard tonight. At some point in the not too distant future, we will be taking Karg Island and other oil infrastructure points and assume total control of their oil and gas markets. Tyler Kendall tracking the story. Hey, Tyler.
Hey, John. Well, clearly a significant threat and escalation that's been put on the table from President Trump, but also one that we've heard from the White House before. We have to keep in mind that about 90% of Iranian crude exports flow through Karg Island. And while the country does have other export terminals, none are considered to match the sort of capacity that Karg Island filters through every day. This is raising questions, though, about what this actual operation would involve, including whether that would mean American boots on the ground. We've previously heard the administration float the idea that if they had total control over the air, that may make such an operation safer actually going into Karg Island. But we're going to have to see how this actually plays out, as we know that significant risks still remain when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, and as Iran threatens that it is only going to tighten its grip over the waterway. A statement from the IRGC overnight saying that they were going to stop all commercial shipping as they ramp up their own threats in response to the U.S.'s airstrikes overnight.
Now, that was earlier today, and as we were reporting throughout this program, there were still reports that it was going to happen, but the definitive statement as it stands right now, Trump says he's canceled the plans to carry out further attacks against Iran tonight, claiming we have made progress in talks with leaders in Tehran. Reading from Truth Social, based on the fact that discussions with the Islamic Republic of Iran have been brought to the highest levels of Iranian leadership and approved, I have, as President of the United States, canceled the scheduled airstrikes and bombings against Iran this evening. Discussions and final points have been made, in both concept and great detail. Approved by all parties involved, including the U.S., Israel, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Turkey, Pakistan, Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan, Egypt, and others. The naval blockade will remain in full force and in effect until this transaction is finalized. Time and place of the signing to be announced shortly. Now, I've been watching that statement throughout the entire program as we were doing it for you, looking for additional clarification or any wavering in it. So when Trump earlier today had threatened to, quote, bomb the you know that word, out of Iran because they shot down one of our choppers, now the word appearing to be the latest word at this moment, he's canceling the strikes. Look, if it leads to peace, he's got what he wants. You have the carrot and stick routine. And sometimes you got to smack them in the mouth to make them realize, yeah, we need to reconsider. And in some cases, you can just put your fist in their face and threaten to, and that'll be enough. By the way, I want you to know this. The State Department is dismantling birth tourism networks across Africa and Europe. 33,000 U.S.-born children were rewarded birthright American citizenship annually over the last few years solely because their foreign parents got here on a temporary visa, maybe a tourist visa, right before they were born. Just perfect timing. Spending the last 2 to 4 weeks before the birth so they'd be born and have a U.S. citizenship. We've got to put an end to that. We cannot continue to have that happen that way. It was originally put in place to provide citizenship for slaves who were brought here against their will. But right now it's become a weapon to be used against us today and tomorrow. By the way, if you haven't heard, Chrysler has issued a major recall for its Pacifica hybrid minivan. 4 fire incidents linked to battery cells. So the company is advising owners, if you have one of these plug-in hybrids, don't park your vehicle inside the garage or even near the garage. We're talking about 17,000 of these vehicles. I'm not going to say it has anything to do directly with the lithium battery, but at the same time, it is a hybrid. Who knows what's involved? But that's the warning. Thanks for listening. We'll be back here tomorrow. Please do not miss it as we begin at 6 o'clock. And remember our pledge, one nation,